Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Niche Pursuits Podcast. My name is Spencer Haas, your host from nichepursuits.com. And as always, I have Perrin with me here as co-host. Perrin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, today's going to be a really interesting podcast because we've had guests on here in the past, but I'll be honest, most of them have been in either the marketing niche or they are SEO experts or building niche websites or related to that. And we haven't really dipped into other people outside of that. And there's a lot of interesting things going on with other people that are doing marketing and branding outside of the entire sort of niche website SEO niche. And today is one of those days where we're bringing on somebody that isn't out really doing the same thing that we're doing, just building websites. And so I'm going to just bring on our guest. His name is Dre Baldwin. And Dre is a basketball player, and I'll let him explain his varying levels of involvement with basketball. But he's been out recording videos on different basketball skills. He has a website and has built a large following in a lot of different places that we'll go into detail. But he's built a brand in a very unique way, and that's what we want to dive in today. So, Dre, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Spencer. I'm excited to be here, excited to hear what you want to ask me about today.
Yeah, well, you reached out to me and kind of showed me some of the background that you have. And in particular, your YouTube channel is very intriguing to me. But like I said, you've built a brand around yourself and around your skills in basketball. But before we dive into kind of the nitty-gritty of how you've done that, why don't you give us a bit of your background, who you are and what led you to becoming an entrepreneur?
Okay, well, basically I started playing basketball. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I started playing basketball around age 14 after having some forays started with football, but my parents really couldn't afford the equipment, so I had to give up football when it was time to start actually putting on pads. Mm-hmm. Went on to playing baseball. My father was actually the youth baseball coach. He took over coaching baseball in the neighborhood. Still coaches baseball 20 years later. He is still coaching youth baseball back home.
Nice.
And being the environment that I come from in the inner city, you're eventually going to try your hand at basketball because that's what everybody does. It's just like Biggie says in his raps. Either you slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot.
Yep.
A couple different ways people see themselves being able to get out of that environment. I'm not from the worst neighborhood, definitely not from the best, but everybody gives their self a shot at basketball. You don't need any equipment. You don't even need your own ball. You just need to come to the court, hope somebody else has one.
Yep.
So as I was growing, I was getting taller. I started trying basketball. I was terrible at first. Kept playing, and I realized that basketball, unlike baseball, where I was afraid of the ball once they started having live pitching, which is why I really quit. And football, where you had to have equipment and you had to actually have somebody to practice with. It's hard to practice football by yourself.
Yep.
Basketball, you can practice on your own. You can get better by yourself, and you can do a lot of it solo. And I do a lot of things by myself. So I've realized, looking around at all the other players in the neighborhood, that if I started practicing and I kept practicing, eventually I could get better than all these other guys just by myself. I didn't need a coach. I didn't need a trainer. I didn't need any brothers. I don't have any. I didn't need a parent who played basketball. My dad didn't play basketball. My mom didn't either. And I kept practicing. I just kept getting better. So I went on to high school with guns blazing. I said, I'm going to go into ninth grade. I'm going to be the only freshman on the basketball team. I'm going to be one of those movie stories. Got cut on the first day of tryouts.
Oh, ouch.
But it was only ninth grade. I said, everybody gets cut in ninth grade. Michael Jordan got cut in ninth grade.
That's right.
10th grade. So I came back for 10th grade, got cut on the first day of tryouts again. So the next summer I started to get taller. I actually started to develop some athleticism. I could finally dunk a basketball if I got a running start, but a dunk is a dunk. So I'll go on to tryouts 11th grade, and I'm like, yeah, all right, this is the year. Michael Jordan made it as a junior. I'm still on the Michael Jordan path right now. That year, I actually got cut on the first day, and I got embarrassed worse that year than I did 9th and 10th grade put together.
Man.
And it's actually a story that I wrote about in my first book, By a Game. But the long and short of it is a guy who was about my size, but he was older than me and a lot stronger. He scored on me about 8 times straight in front of everybody in the gym. The other players were laughing. The coach was laughing. The girls who were watching tryouts were laughing. I was taught tryouts, and I didn't even make the team. So my senior year, I finally, I picked myself up mentally. My senior year, I did finally make the team. So I said, okay, this is my year to shine. Maybe I can earn a scholarship or something. I averaged 2 points per game, not 20 points, 2 points, 1, 2. 2 points per game as a senior. Walked on to a college basketball team, which was actually I went to Penn State Abington my freshman year, which is a 4-year school academically, but at that time you could only play 2 years of sports. And I went there and played my freshman year. I did okay. I wasn't spectacular, but I was all right. And I showed enough promise that I was actually recruited from Abington to a different Penn State branch campus, because Penn State University has about 20 different branch campuses.
Okay.
Got recruited to Penn State Altoona, which is a Division III school. And I actually ended up playing there my last 3 years of college, or up to my senior year, when I was actually kicked out of the program by a former NBA player by the name of Armin Gilliam. He was the head coach at the time. He became the head coach. He kicked me out of the program. So my senior year, I was completely healthy, completely eligible academically, but I did not play basketball. I played intramural basketball as a senior. So I was in there playing basketball. My highest level of competition as a senior in college were guys who were, the next year, they were selling Nissans at the dealership.
Yeah.
But I ended up winning the championship in intramural basketball, so I can at least say that.
Right.
After that year, as a graduate, I figured, okay, now it's time I want to get into professional basketball. And coming from a Division III school, not a lot of players who come out of Division III end up playing professionally. The statistics say that out of all college players, fewer than 1% ever even make $1 playing basketball.
Right.
So I knew the odds were against me, but I always had this vision in my head of what I was going to become. I knew I wasn't going to do something that I would be applying things that were taught to me in those lecture halls in college. Number one, because it never interested me, and number two, because I slept through most of my senior year. But I tell people I majored in basketball and social interaction. That's actually on my LinkedIn profile. My major was social interaction and basketball.
Yeah.
And my actual major, if you look at my degree, it says business management and marketing on a serious level. But anyway, after that year, after my senior year of college, I went to a few basketball tryouts locally. Didn't make anything happen. I actually ended up getting a job using my degree, I guess, quote unquote. I got a job as an assistant manager of Foot Locker. This is in the fall of 2004.
Okay.
So at Foot Locker as an assistant manager for about 6 months. I quit that job. Actually, I got to tell you a quick story. I was telling a friend last night. About 4 months into that job, maybe 5 months, I was thinking about quitting Foot Locker, and I was the assistant manager. So what happens at Foot Locker is if you go there during the week, a Monday through Friday, at this time of day, let's say, it's very slow. It's quiet in the middle of a mall at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
Right.
So the assistant manager and head manager basically alternate days working all day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You get 2 days, the other guy gets 2 days. So one of my 2 days, let's say it was a Tuesday, I'm talking to the regional manager. This guy's name was Leaf. And I said to Leaf, Leaf, I have a college degree. I want to make more money at this company. I don't want to quit this job because this job is relatively easy, but y'all going to have to pay me some more money. And Leaf says to me, Dre, what you got to understand is that it takes years to build yourself up and work yourself up in this company, because Foot Locker is a big corporation.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Dre, look at Keith. And Keith was the head manager of my store. He said, look at Keith. He's been working at Foot Locker for 9 years, and he's built his way up to being the head manager of a store. So you're not going to be able to just say, I want more money after 4 months, Dre. And we're going back and forth, and eventually Leaf just takes a deep sigh, and he says, Dre, understand this. This is a career. And I remember when he said that to me, it was one of those epiphany moments.
Yep.
When he said that, I said, what the hell am I doing here?
Yep.
I'm debating with the regional manager of a Foot Locker to get more money. I'm playing the wrong game. I'm fighting the wrong battle. That's the problem. It's not that I'm not winning the battle, but even if I do win it, I don't actually win, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yep,
so I ended up quitting that job. Quit that job. Actually got another job at Valley Total Fitness. I was selling gym memberships. Worked there through the summer of 2005, and in June of 2005, I saved up my money. A friend of mine and me, we rented a car in Philadelphia at about 5 p.m. on a Friday. We needed to be in Orlando, Florida by 9 a.m. on Saturday for a professional basketball exposure camp. We made it. We pulled into the parking lot at 9 o'clock on the dot. We didn't stop at a hotel, no shower, no breakfast, nothing. Straight to the gym. And that camp that I attended there in Orlando in 2005 was the beginning of my career. I actually played really well at that camp. I got some good reviews from the scouts. I got some video from it. I actually took that video, and this is '05, back before YouTube and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Sending VHS tapes. I went and got VHS tape copies made. I emailed every single agent I could find on the internet, and everyone who showed even a spark of interest, I mailed them a VHS tape of my play, sent them my scouting report, eventually signed with an agent by September of 2005. This had to be about a few days after Hurricane Katrina hit in New Orleans. I signed my first contract, went over to Lithuania, and that was in '05. And between then and now, I've been to about 8 different countries playing professionally, either through camps, tryouts, or actually being signed with the team. Do I continue from here? You want to hear the rest of the story, or do you want to ask me anything?
Why don't you continue on with your story, and we're gonna dive more into the business side of things here in a little bit. But go ahead and with sort of where your basketball career is today, I guess, and some of those experiences.
All right, that gave me a chance to take a drink of water. All right, so in 2005, I signed in Lithuania. From there, I went on, came home for a bit. Came home after Lithuania. I didn't actually have another playing job lined up. I was still living at home because I hadn't saved up enough money to live as an adult. Coming back from that first job, I actually ended up getting a job as, okay, so everyone who's listening to this, and you too, Spencer and Perrin, also, you go to the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you go to the supermarket and you purchase items off the shelf, at the end of the night, somebody has to restock the items that were purchased off the shelf.
Right.
So ended up getting a job working in the overnight crew at a supermarket, restocking the shelves from about 11 at night to about 7 in the morning when the supermarket opened back up. Now, because I had a college degree, I was quote unquote the manager. But since I didn't know anything about the business, I had to do the same work that everyone else was doing, even though I was getting paid a little bit more. But it wasn't anything to brag about.
Right.
I worked about 6 weeks. I was working the night shift, the overnight shift, stocking shelves at a supermarket. This is in 2005. I had just played professional basketball. I had a college degree in business from Penn State. I was stocking shelves at a supermarket. And I finally got a call in December to go play for a traveling team in the United States called the Harlem Ambassadors. So for those of you who don't know who that is, if you heard of Harlem Globetrotters, or you've seen them, Harlem Ambassadors are basically the Motel 6 version of the Harlem Globetrotters. Played for them for about 4 or 5 months. Had a kind of a bad breakup with that team. I wrote about that on my website, and the owner of that team probably still hates me to this day. But anyway, left that team, went on to play in Mexico, came back from Mexico, ended up getting another 9-to-5 job selling gym memberships again. And I worked, that was in Philadelphia. I moved from Philadelphia because at the time I met my then girlfriend. When I was up north, we moved to Florida, in Miami, where I am now. From there, I actually got my next job was to go play in Montenegro. Now, this is about 2008. So,
okay.
The YouTube thing. The video from that very first camp I went to in Orlando, I always had it on VHS tape. And the problem with VHS tapes, for those of you who remember VHS tapes, is that when you're moving around from place to place and years go by, they get damaged. And one of those tapes get damaged and you lose everything that's on it forever. So there was a point where I had that tape. I said, this is the most valuable thing I own right now, this tape of me playing basketball well against other good players. I need to keep this somewhere. I need to figure out how to put it on a computer or something somewhere for safekeeping that'll be around forever. So at the time, there was this brand new website where you could just store your own video for free. It was called YouTube. So I said, okay, let me just transfer this to a CD. I'll go to some audio-visual place, get the VHS put on the CD, and I'll put the CD in the computer and upload the video to YouTube, and I'll just make my own little account and just have that video there, and I just know it's there forever.
Yep.
Put the video there, and what ended up happening over a couple months, I actually logged on to YouTube, and I seen people leaving comments on that video. Now, the thing with me putting that video up is that I didn't expect anyone else to watch it because nobody knew who I was. Nobody had ever heard of me. This game wasn't off of TV or anything. Why were people even caring?
Gotcha, yeah.
couple people have left some comments and they asked me, well, hey, can you do this? Can you do a dribbling drill? Can you do some shooting? Can you shoot free throws? Can you explain this? Can you explain that? So I started making a couple of videos. I'm the type of person who's in the gym all the time. Even if I wasn't an athlete, I'd go to the gym every day or go run on the beach or go lift weights, do something. I'm a very active individual. So I would always be working out, and I would always think to myself, man, I wish I had a cameraman or a photographer here to take pictures of me or to record me just so I could see if I look the way that I envision myself looking when I'm out here playing.
Right.
So when I got my first camera, it was actually a little digital camera that my then girlfriend had bought for me for my birthday. I believe it was my 25th birthday, my 24th birthday. I just started recording myself in the gym, maybe shooting some jump shots, maybe doing a few dunks. And I started posting these videos, and people started watching them. And people said, wow, you're really good. Can you explain how you do that dribbling move? Can you do some more shooting? Can you give us some tips on this? Give me some tips on that. And I couldn't believe it because I said, none of these people have any idea who I am. They probably don't even know that I sell memberships at a gym by day, but they looking at me like I'm some superstar basketball player. So I'm like, okay. So I kept posting these videos, and eventually I would post maybe once a month. I would come up with some stuff and I'd post it. And I had videos. I wasn't taking YouTube seriously. And people had to understand that at this point in 2007, 2008, this is before YouTube became YouTube with a capital Y and a capital T. This is when YouTube was a hobby website. You posted videos there as a hobby. There was no money involved. There were no advertisements. There were no brands being built. There was no Google involved. This was before Google even came into the picture. So I would have videos that I recorded that I would sit on they would sit on my computer for months because I was like, who cares about posting them to YouTube? It's not doing anything for me. I got other things to do. So even some of my most popular videos that have 6-figure views, I sat on those videos for months because I didn't care. I eventually got around to posting them. People started liking them, et cetera, et cetera. So around 2008, I was in Germany. And I had a membership at this gym called 24 Hour Fitness. There are a lot of those down here in Florida. And for some reason, I was awake at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I went to the gym and worked out. And the thing with me and working out, as I mentioned earlier, is that I like to work out all the time. It's kind of like my sanctuary, exercise and physical activity. It's when I get my best ideas. And whenever I'm working out, I don't really have to think about what I'm doing. So my subconscious mind comes into play. All the ideas that I've been working on consciously, the solutions start coming to me when I'm in that flow, in that zone, kind of like the book Flow. I don't remember the author, but people talk about this all the time. People who meditate, they talk about getting into that zone or that flow where those great ideas come to you. So when I was working out, I was just thinking about all the kids leaving comments on my videos, and they all seem to ask the same question. Can you give me tips on fill in the blank? The word tips. I got tired of hearing that word. Tips. Drake, can you give me some tips? Can you help me? I don't know how to get better. What do I need to do to get better? So I recorded this video in 2008. I'm sitting in the gym at a 24-hour fitness, and I'm explaining to them the reason why you're not developing in basketball is because you're getting on the internet, you're playing video games, you're searching for these 4-leaf clovers, and what you really need to do, and this is where I coined a phrase that kind of made me known, is I said, what you need to do is work on your game. When I said that phrase, I put that in the video. I wasn't thinking anything of it. It was just a phrase, a statement that I made along in the video, and people took that and ran with it, and it became like my catchphrase. And over the years, of course, I've developed it, but that was in 2008. And around 2009, my then girlfriend she forwarded me a blog post about this woman named Michelle Phan, who was she was on YouTube, Asian woman, and she was into makeup. And what she would do on YouTube was post makeup tutorials and her videos were just blowing up. She had 100,000 fans.
Right.
And in that article, they said Michelle Phan is actually starting to make money from YouTube because Google has bought the company and they started this thing called the partner program, where if you're accepted into the program, you apply, you get accepted, they actually run advertisements on your videos and you can make money from them. So my girlfriend forwarded that article to me, and it sparked an idea for me. And the first thought that I had was, what if I was to post videos every single day of myself playing basketball? And the problem was I'm going to run out of ideas in about 30 days. I said, I'm going to go about a month of posting new videos, new ideas, new drills. And after about a month, I'm going to have told people everything I know about basketball. I'll be completely out of information.
Yeah.
This was in October of 2009. Well, some time has passed since then. We're now in July 2014. I posted at least one new video every single day for the last 6+ years, just by being creative, just letting my creative juices flow, seeing what people ask for. I've come up with different ideas, doing Q&As, just posting videos that are just answers to questions, doing motivational videos. And I've been able to build my name, build a brand to the point where my name alone is more recognizable than some players who have played in a lot more places than me, played a lot longer than me, and played on TV, even though I've never played on TV and things like that. Just built my brand off the fact that I'm the guy who's in the gym every day working out. If it's one thing you can say about me, that's the thing you can say.
Yeah, so let's jump into that a little bit. Lots of really great information. Some of the quick takeaways that I have, at least initially, as we kind of transition from your story of just playing basketball and some of the great things you've done there, but transitioning now more into the business side of building up that brand on YouTube. The first thing that I guess I noticed that you said that I would like to point out is that you really were listening to your customers in a way. Even with that very first video that you posted, sounds like you started getting at least a few comments, and people were asking, what about this or what about that? And you would take those suggestions and just apply those. And so I think that that's something that people can take into their own business as well. Have open ears and listen to your customers and find ways that you can meet their needs. They're asking for it. But also, maybe you can highlight your stats for us. At least the last that I checked, and I guess I can go right now. On YouTube, you have a little over 85,000 subscribers, about 85,220 is what I show right now. So huge number of subscribers that are watching your videos that you're posting here on a daily basis. And about how many, or do you know about how many video views a day you're getting approximately?
The video views, I would say right now, it could be anywhere between 15 and 40,000 a day.
Yeah.
The thing with YouTube is they've been playing around a lot with their algorithms over the last couple of years. They're trying to make changes to maximize their revenue. So sometimes the algorithm change makes me go up in views. Sometimes it makes me go down.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I've seen both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and so that's a huge amount of views for people to have. And the other thing, posting daily videos for now, you said almost 6 years. That's huge, consistent effort there. Is that what you attribute to your biggest success, or the reason why you've had the biggest success on YouTube is the consistent daily content, or is there some other reason?
Well, I think a lot of times when you're talking about building a personal brand or building a business, your business needs to own something. There was Russell Simmons I follow on Twitter. One day he said, if you say Donald Trump, it's real estate. If it's Kobe Bryant, it's basketball. If it's Serena Williams, it's tennis. If it's Oprah, it's talking. You need to own maybe not one word. If you can't own that one word, you need to own an idea. And a couple weeks ago, I was at this a brand building conference. This woman named Michelle Villalobos, and she says, your brand is not what you say about you, it's what other people say about you, what they say behind your back when you're not around. So I would say, I asked myself, what do people say about me? And as I said earlier, the number one thing anybody could say about me, like if you knew me and you were trying to sell the idea of Dre Baldwin to your friends, you would say, this guy goes to the gym every day, and he does all this work and all this practice, and he puts all these videos out, and he shares all his knowledge, and he shares all his information. So it's the persistence, it's the discipline, it's the consistency that I would say my brand is built on. People knowing me. I made the analogy in a blog post I wrote recently. If you woke up at 5 a.m. and you wanted coffee and a donut, where are you going? You're going to go to Dunkin' Donuts. There's only one.
Donuts, yeah.
Because you know it's open every day at 5 o'clock. Doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, if the owner had a fight with his wife last night, if he's tired, if he's hungover. At 5 a.m., there's hot coffee and there are donuts. And you need to look at yourself like you're that business. And that business is open at 5 a.m. every single day, because if I pull up and it's not open, then they just lost their spot in my mind, and now somebody else is going to take that. So you have to figure out what it is you represent, and then you have to live it and represent it every single day.
Yeah, and your brand actually speaks to that quite well. I mean, not only are you trying to project the image, and you are the guy that's in the gym day in and day out doing these basketball skills and other things, but you match that very well with your message as you post daily as well. So, people see that well-rounded, that, hey, Dre's the guy I can go to for daily information on basketball. And so, yeah, just what you're actually practicing matches what you're preaching very, very well. Are there any other sort of marketing tactics, if you will, or strategy that people can take away? I mean, are there any other things that you've done to build your brand outside of just posting consistent content?
Yeah, number one, one of the first things you said when this podcast began, Spencer, is, Dre, you reached out to us.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to sell yourself.
For sure.
I don't know. Who knows if I would ever have been on this conference? Who knows if I ever been on this podcast if I hadn't sent you an email?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go out. I remember I worked at this hat store, right? When I was a senior in high school, I worked at McDonald's in this mall. And I saw this hat store in there, and there was a woman in there working. She always seemed to be by herself. So I asked her, hey, you hiring? And she said, well, you got to put in your application, et cetera, et cetera. So she actually ended up hiring me. And when I started talking to her, I found she had a background in retail management. She had always managed retail stores. So I would always ask her, I'll pepper her with questions like, how did you get this job? How did you get into that? And the first thing she said about every job she ever had is that when I got my interview, I didn't answer the questions they asked. That wasn't what she said, even though, of course, that is what you do. She said, I sold myself to them.
Yeah.
I had to sell myself. I had to talk myself up. I said, I've done this. I've done this. I can do this. This is what I have done. These are what people say about me. And then that person had no choice but to hire her. So sometimes you have to step out and you have to tell other people, this is who I am, and this is why you should know who I am. And this is why what I do is important. So you have to put yourself out there sometimes. And I think a lot of people, when they're good at something and they know that they're good, they're sitting around wondering, why is nobody paying attention to me? If your phone's not ringing, sometimes you got to start ringing other people's phones.
Yeah.
And so on a tactical level, how did you do that with YouTube? I mean, there are things like this, like actually asking to get on a podcast, but, especially in the early stages, what were some of those activities sort of on the tactical level?
The number one thing, and I'm not going to sit here and just say it was just hard work, because everybody can tell you that. And, every once in a while you might need a stroke of serendipity or a stroke of luck to help you.
Sure.
When I first started on YouTube, NBA.com had a contest where they said, send in your best YouTube video of the week, and we're going to have the fans vote for it. So I sent in a video of me doing a bunch of random dunks for about 60 seconds, and I got put in like this week's top 5 videos or whatever it was. And about the next week, they did the same thing, and I put out another video, and that video didn't get chosen. So I was kind of pissed off. I was like, man, I made it last week. Did I get worse? So the next week, I made another video. I happened to be up at Penn State with a couple of my friends, a couple of my college teammates. And as we were doing a workout, we were doing a lot of jump shots and all this. I'm looking around the gym, and I'm looking at random objects I see in the gym because I had an idea for what I'm going to do. Because I've been blessed. I'm an athletic individual. So I grabbed a folding chair. And this is with my friend recording me. I grabbed the folding chair. I got a running start. I jumped over the chair, and I dunked the basketball. Then I grabbed a little bit higher up folding table. I got a running start, jumped over the table, and I dunked the basketball. Then I grabbed this big white industrial-sized fan. It was like one of those fans they use in music videos. When you see Beyonce's hair blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
One of those. So I actually tried to jump over the fan a couple times, and I couldn't get the dunk. I didn't ever come up short of jumping over the fan, but I didn't actually make the dunk. So a friend of mine, my college roommate, it was the time that the movie Borat was really popular. So he was making all these jokes. Did you guys see Borat, the movie?
Yeah, I did, for sure.
All right, so you remember the part in the movie where they taught him to say something as a joke and then make a little pause, and then he would say, not.
Yeah.
Right. So so my roommate was saying, well, Dre can make this dunk. Not. And these guys were just going back and forth with all these Borat voices. And I ended up making the dunk, jumping over the fan, dunking the basketball. And the funny thing is, the people who watched the video, the thing that they kept talking about was the Borat sounds. The two guys in the background talking like Borat. They didn't even care about the dunks.
Right.
It's funny on YouTube and things like that people remember you can put all this work into getting XYZ message out, but all people remember is the ABC that was so inconsequential. So
Right.
you don't really know. I didn't plan it happening like that. I would have just told him, if he would have asked me what to do, I would have told him, they'll shut the hell up and just record me so I can jump over the fan. But they started talking, and that actually was a hit. It actually made it on the NBA.com top 5 videos of the year. And in the caption to that video, the question that NBA.com says that is this guy the next Steve Francis? And Steve Francis, for those who don't know, he was a really popular basketball player in the early 2000s. He started in the All-Star game next to Kobe Bryant for a couple years. And he's actually one of my favorite players of all time. So when they said that, it really made me feel good. But that was like the stroke of luck that kind of made me very popular. I gained a lot of new viewers, a lot of news. I don't even know if they had subscribers back then, but a lot of people started knowing my names because of that. So that is like, in business, sometimes you do have to get lucky. I know Mark Cuban says that all the time on Shark Tank. You only have to be right once, but luck does play a factor. But if you're not prepared by doing the work and having something to share when your opportunity comes, then the luck won't happen to you.
Yeah, and a little bit of luck, but not without some strategy. I mean, you were the one who submitted it to NBA.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
no, very well said. Absolutely. So let's move on to the business side of things on this. So it's great that you've been able to build up a lot of subscribers on YouTube, and we can go into all your other social media platforms. You do very well on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You have a lot of followers everywhere. You clearly have built up a great brand. But has this opened up any doors for you? And if so, what doors has it opened up for you as far as your own business?
Well, the first thing I started doing online was back in about 2002, back when most of us all had desktop computers. I had this desktop computer that was so slow that I would type in ESPN.com in the URL, and then I would go take a nap, and hopefully the page would be open by the time that I woke up. So back then, I've always been big on making lists, like my goals for the next year. What do I want to accomplish? I wrote out a 10-year plan. And most of the goals in that plan I keep private. But I will say one of the goals on there was to be on the Oprah show. I didn't make it within 10 years, but it's still one of my goals. And another one was to have my own website. A website about me, by me, and basically for me. If nobody else wanted to read it, I really didn't give a damn. But I knew I wanted to have a website because I always knew that I had something to say, and I felt like I had a unique way of sharing it. I started blogging back in 2005 because I've always liked writing. So I was writing before I was making basketball videos. So writing is something that's always been very important to me. I'm a really big reader. I read all the time. I try to read like 50 books a year. I've never made it close to that number, but I aim for it. And once I started doing the videos on YouTube, one thing that I noticed was that a lot of players were asking me not only about the physical, can you do this dribble, how can you jump higher, can you tell me how to make a jump shot? They were asking about the motivation. Dre, what is it that motivates you to go to the gym every day? How is it that you barely played in high school, but you ended up making it to be a professional? What is it that drives you? What is it that you're looking at when you're playing against another player that gives you the confidence to play against them? How did you get to this mental state? It wasn't so much the physical, it was the mental. And a lot of players are having problems with the mental. So I started making these videos called the Weekly Motivation, where I would share a motivational tip, maybe a 1 to 3 minute video. If you look at my channel, you see a lot of my videos are very short form content, easily digestible. So I'll make this motivational video. I said, I'm going to do this every week if you all want to see it. So leave comments to let me know if you want to see it. And people responded enthusiastically, and that was about 2 years ago. And as of actually today, I put the motivational video out every Monday. Today I release weekly motivation number 199. So next week will be weekly motivation 200, where I answer the $1 million question. What's your why? Because people started asking me that almost every day now. What's your why? What's your why? So the motivational thing after I kept making so many videos, a lot of people said to me, Dre, you know, you're well spoken. We like the way you put your ideas and thoughts together, the analogies and metaphors you use. And I thought to myself, I would like to do this not only just talking to a camera, but talking to an audience. I want to get into public speaking. So that's one thing that I've been working on this year. I'm in a group called Toastmasters. I don't know if you are familiar with Toastmasters.
Heard of them.
Right. So Toastmasters is basically where people meet up, take turns giving speeches. We critique each other, make each other better, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been working on getting my public speaking career started and writing. I've actually wrote 3 books. They're all digital. My first was called Buy a Game. It was basically my basketball background that I detailed earlier from the time I began up through college. I didn't write the pro story yet because it's still being written. I wrote a second book called The Mirror of Motivation, which is more like a motivational thing, looking inside of yourself instead of looking outside of yourself. My third book was called The Mental Handbook, which is basically the mental side of the game and also the mental side of life. Certain problems that I see players asking me about over and over and over again. I basically dedicated a chapter to each one and how you can overcome that. And probably before the end of the summer, I'll be releasing my 4th book, which is based on confidence, and it's called The Super You, which is basically not just being confident, but being confident at being confident, if you will. So it's about the highest level of confidence, basically taking everything that you sometimes stop yourself short of, because I find that people are much more afraid of being successful than they are of being a failure. Sometimes we stop ourselves a lot of times, and that's what that book is about. Stopping yourself and actually be the highest version of yourself. So that'll be my 4th book. So public speaking and writing are 2 things I definitely wanted to get into. Probably the 2 main things I'm going to focus on once basketball is done, since I'm much closer to being done with basketball than I am to beginning basketball.
Yeah, so let me just kind of throw out some of the other stuff that you do for our audience because it's pretty impressive. So you do personal training, you sell merchandise, you obviously have your big YouTube channel, you have books, you model, and you're getting into public speaking. So of those, I mean, we see a lot of diversification. So as a business person and entrepreneur, do you think it's worth it to diversify? And has it worked out for you? And which of those ventures has been most profitable on your side?
It's funny that you asked that because about a couple months ago, I was talking to this female friend of mine. She was asking me, she didn't really know that much about me. So I think we met like on an online dating profile or something. So she's asking me, you know, what do you do? And I'm explaining to her all these things that you just mentioned. And she's like, well, why you do all these different things? Why don't you do just one thing? You got a college degree. Why don't you just play basketball? Why don't you just be a model? Or why don't you just do this or just do that? And I started to explain it to her. And as I'm explaining it to her, the way that my mind works, the wheels started turning. I said, you know what? I need to actually blog about this and write this out because people ask me this question all the time. And the thing about the woman I was talking to, she was a school teacher. And my mother's a school teacher. And I'll tell you a quick story about my mother. In 2004, when I graduated from college, my mother is a strict disciplinarian. She's all about school. She's all about following what I call the plan. And that's the plan with a capital T and a capital P. And the plan is go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a job, get married, live happily ever after at the end. And I never planned on being a person who followed the plan. I didn't know how I would divert from that plan, but I just knew that wasn't for me. I knew I wanted to do something different and just follow the same path that everybody else followed. And as I went on and I started writing about this and I was explaining to this woman, I like to do all those things. I like getting my picture taken, so that's why I model. I like to write, so that's why I put out books. I like to play basketball. That's why I do the YouTube thing and play basketball games. I like to have merchandise. I like to have a brand and a following that people follow. I like to train players. I like to make programs for players. I like to speak in public. I like to do all these things, so I don't feel like it would make sense for me to say, okay, let me spend my 20s and 30s playing basketball, and then when that's over, when I'm 40, I could be a writer until I'm 50. But then when am I going to be able to model? That time will be past. Then when I'm going to be able to train people, that'll be gone. Why can't I public speak right now? Why do I have to wait until I'm 45 or 50 years old to do it? If I like to do 10 different things, then I'm going to do 10 different things. I don't see any reason why I couldn't be able to do that. And it might not be for everybody, and that's fine. But I'm me, and those are the things that I like to do, and that's the way that I like to do it. And I feel like once people start questioning it like that, it actually strengthens my resolve to do it. I'm a very stubborn person. Once you tell me I'm not going to be able to do something, or you question what I'm doing as if something's wrong with it, that's going to make me go even harder to do it, just to prove to you that, yes, I can do it this way, and this is the way it's going to happen.
Would you recommend it as a business strategy to somebody who is trying to do something similar?
To build a personal brand?
Or to build a diverse portfolio of businesses instead of laser targeting one thing, because we've had a lot of guests on who have success both ways. We have people like you who really work on diversifying like traffic and revenue streams and things like that. But we also have people who laser target one niche and go after one really big thing, So
right.
Would you recommend diversification as a business strategy?
Well, I would say you had to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and you had to ask yourself, what is it that you're good at, and how do people view you? So we look at it this way. I'm a basketball player. Until I sent you that email, you had never heard of me before, even though I have a well-known following online and all of this. And I played basketball overseas. To the casual person in America, an overseas basketball player is some generic guy who plays in some league in Europe. They don't know anything about it. You look at a Kobe Bryant or you look at LeBron James. Those are the top basketball players. Those are the people who can focus only on basketball because they can make $30 million playing basketball. Everybody knows them from basketball. And once they're done with basketball, they can sit back and just do nothing for the rest of their lives. They're set because they did that. Now, I'm pretty good at basketball. If you actually were to lay out all the players in the world, I'm still in that top 1%. But you got to be in the 1% of the 1% to be at a Kobe Bryant level.
Right.
So I got to the point where I said, okay, I'm good at basketball. I can make some money from playing basketball, but I'm not going to make what Kobe Bryant makes playing basketball. But I still want to be able to build a business. I still want to be able to play basketball. So why don't I put what I can into this YouTube thing and build my brand through there? If I look at everything that I do, the number one way people know me and the most impressive thing people find about me is, wow, you posted 3,000 plus videos on YouTube playing basketball. You're having an impact on all these young people, and everything can branch out from that. So I would say, based on how high do you really think you can get if you focus on that one area? I like to model, but I'm not Tyson Beckford. I like to public speak, but I'm not Pat Riley or E.T. yet. Right. I'm not Eric Thomas yet. I like to write books, but I'm not Stephen King. I'm not Robert Greene. So you have to at least look at what people are seeing. How do they see you at that level? You can get better at things. I was reading something that someone said, when you focus on something you're good at, you can improve 150 to 200%. When you focus on your weaknesses, the best you can ever get is okay at it. And I'm not saying that I'm weak at any of those things. I think I'm pretty good at all of them. But like I said in the previous answer, I like to do all those things. So if it's what you like to do, you should be doing it. Why would you hold yourself back from something?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a great point to make, is that you are passionate about all those things, so why not? I think that there's a lot of people look at their business and they see so many different activities that they could be working on, and they might not be passionate about all of those, and so maybe it doesn't make sense to diversify quite as much as you have, for example. But yeah, I agree. I mean, you clearly are exuding passion for all of those areas. If you can make it happen, go for it. I applaud you for that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And it's clearly you're doing something right. Obviously, the brand is continuing to build and to grow. And I know you don't want to share all of your income numbers, and obviously with so many different areas, it'd kind of be weird to try and break those out. But can you give us any kind of monetary success that you've had from either your books or other products, or this particular business?
Well, as far as YouTube goes, the same way that you asked me about the views, the money kind of goes the same way. The money basically goes where the views go on YouTube. So when YouTube jiggers with the algorithm and the numbers go up, I can make more, I can make less. I've made anywhere on YouTube. I remember my first ever YouTube deposit was $100.
Right.
YouTube AdSense, Google AdSense is you got to get $100, $100 threshold. You reach that, you actually get a deposit. So the first month I was a partner in the YouTube partner program, I made about $3. Then I made about $13. Then I made about $90. So my first check was a little over $100. I was so happy when I got that. I was like, okay, this is real now. Now,
Yep.
now I'm doing something here because I actually made money. So I made once it actually matured, I made some months I made $1,000, some months I made $3,000 to $4,000 from the ads that run on YouTube, combined with the ads that run on my website. Even though I don't really run ads on my site anymore because I realized that nobody clicks on them.
Yeah.
People really don't look at advertisements anymore. When you watch a TV show, you don't even remember the commercials. So these companies, as long as they want to keep spending on ads, I guess I'll keep cashing the checks. But that's through YouTube. As far as with the books and things like that, probably $1,000 or so a month I can make off between Amazon and iBooks, but I don't even pay that much attention to it. I haven't had a book that really took off yet.
Right.
My books are really sold mostly to my audience. I want to write a book that someone who's never heard of me from YouTube reads the reviews or reads the description and looks at the cover and says, oh, I want to read that.
Yeah.
That's the level that I want to get to as an author. I haven't reached that yet, and each book that I write, that's the level that I'm aiming for. So that's what I'm looking at right now with my next book.
Yeah. And, what I see is that you're building massive potential. I mean, clearly you've shared some numbers with us, and, I mean, business is good. I mean, just from you posting YouTube videos, you're not only building your brand, I mean, you're making some decent money just off of the YouTube videos, and then, of course, the books and other things that you do as well is a nice little business, but you're building massive potential so that, when you dial it in, for whatever reason, if you get a little bit of luck and just hit on that perfect book title, or, have your break somewhere, with some big speaking gig, maybe you do get on the Oprah show, or have an interview with Oprah, you've got that huge potential behind you, that audience already, because you've built that brand and you put in the years of work that you're in a much, much better position to have a huge bestseller or breakaway hit than somebody else, just getting started.
Right.
And
even on a slightly smaller level, even if no one book is ever a massive success, you always have an audience to sell the next book to,
Right. It's kind of like, I'm sure y'all familiar with Seth Godin, or Godin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He talks about that. He talks about the drip. It's like that drip theory. You might not be the person who sells 1 million copies of one book, but if you put out 10 books or you put out 20 books and you just drip, drip, drip. It's like if you leave your faucet dripping and you go on vacation, you come back, your house is flooded. So if you let it just keep dripping, you just keep being consistent, you might get rich slow instead of being a person who hits the lottery with that one thing. So I would love to make $100 million by doing one thing and just have it blow up, and I'm all over the cover of GQ and everything, but it might just happen slowly. So you never know. But
and that's okay too. Yep.
Exactly.
And so bringing it back to basketball then, what is your future with basketball?
Well, right now I'm 32 years old. I've been playing since I was, like I said, about 14. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm closer to being done with basketball than I am starting basketball.
Right.
But I'm not set to retire. And people always ask me, how long am I going to play? I don't want to put a number on it because it really goes off of how you feel. It's not really how old you are, it's how you feel. And the thing with basketball, any professional sport, what people have to understand about the sport is not the games. When you watch TV and you see LeBron James and Kobe or Michael Jordan playing in these games, it's not the games that wear you down. Nobody ever gets tired of the games. When you walk into an arena and there are 20,000 or even 1,000 people in the crowd sitting there that came to see a game, you get up for that every day. You could do that forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Games don't kill you. It's the practices. It's the training. It's what you have to do to be good enough to play in the games that start to kill you over the years. Like last weekend, I was playing basketball with a couple ex-NBA players. And I ask them all the time, whenever I meet them, I say, when was the point where you realized you were done? And they always say the same thing. They say, it was because it took me 45 minutes to get ready to practice. It wasn't the game. It wasn't the game. I had to come to practice 45 minutes before everybody else because I needed to get treatment from the trainer for 45 minutes just to be ready to practice.
Yeah.
And understand that practices to games in pro sports are about anywhere from a 4-to-1 to a 10-to-1 ratio. When I was playing in Montenegro, we played games once a week. We practiced twice a day. The other 5 days of the week, we had Sunday off.
Man.
10 practices to one game. It's the practices and the training, the getting ready, the off season. That's what kicks your butt over the years. So when I get tired of that, that's when I'm going to stop. And actually, the rapper Drake has a line in his last album. He said, "The moment I stop having fun with it, I'll be done with it." So as soon as I'm not having fun and it becomes a job and it starts to feel like a drag and I'm dreading going to the gym, the day that happens, I'm going to turn on my camera. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure." And that'll be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's awesome. So what about your business? Where do you hope to take your business in the future now?
Well, once I get to the point that I'm not in the gym working out every day, because I would still say my main focus, number one thing my energy goes to is my physical fitness, which is being in the gym, being on the court, running the miles, lifting the weights, the stretching, the foam rolling, the recovery, the yoga. All of that stuff is hours a day. So once I stop doing that and I'm able to commit those hours to other things, it's just going to be building my brand, building my business completely. I'm talking to speaking, I'm talking to authoring, I'm talking the training programs. I want to eventually have my own facility where I can have players come in and work out and have trainers whom I respect working there and doing things like this. And I've never actually even told anybody that. So those are the things that I want to do next. Just build up everything except the basketball. So everything you know me for doing, I'm going to build all those things up because I haven't devoted full-time energy to any of them yet because I still devote full-time energy to being an athlete.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I love your passion. I love your drive and your vision for your business and for basketball, of course. As we wrap up things here, where's the best place that we can send people to follow along with what you're doing?
Well, if people are going to be consistent enough to come on YouTube and watch the videos, you should subscribe to me on YouTube. That's youtube.com/DreUPT, but you don't have to remember that. Just search my name. If you go online and Google me, you'll see everything that I do, my website, you'll see my YouTube. The quickest way to get a conversation started with me would probably be to email me, Dre@DreAllDay.com. You can also do that through my website. Or to tweet me. My Twitter name is Dre All Day. My Facebook is Facebook.com/WorkOnYourGame. I'm also on Instagram @Dre Baldwin. I mean, most of the time I tell people all these things, you're not going to remember any of those URLs. Just Google me. Just type in the name Dre Baldwin and whatever you like to use. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Internet, YouTube, Instagram. I'm on all of them. So you'll find me on all of those. So just Google me. Whatever way you like to communicate, I will respond as long as you got something to say.
Awesome. Yep. Dre's all over the place. Again, go ahead and just Google Dre Baldwin or Dre All Day. Find his website or his YouTube channel. Lots of places that you can follow along with what Dre is doing. Dre, I appreciate you coming on to the Niche Pursuits podcast and sharing your basketball story, your business story, and just what you've done building out your personal brand. Before we leave, is there any last parting words of wisdom or anything else that you'd like to leave with us?
Yeah, I want to know how the game with Smallville is going to go.
Okay, well, that's another thing I actually didn't mention. There's guys on YouTube, they have basically a league of people playing one-on-one basketball, and they tried to set up a game of me and one of their best players because they do size divisions, so this guy's the same size as me. They want me to play this guy one-on-one. They tried to come to Miami. They tried to do a Kickstarter campaign, which failed to get funded. So I told them I'll do a Kickstarter campaign for just me. Instead of them bringing a whole team to Miami, I'll bring myself to them.
Nice.
We're there in Austin, Texas. So I have a Kickstarter campaign that just launched 2 days ago. The goal is $2,500. We're already 10% there within 2 days. So I thank all my supporters who have jumped in early. If that happens, I will be going to Austin, Texas, probably in September, and I'm going to go there and kick everybody's ass in that league. And we're going to put all that on YouTube. So even if you're not there in Texas, you will get to see that on the internet. And the last thing I would want to say to the audience out there, first of all, to Spencer and Perrin, you two, I really appreciate you having me on the show. You didn't have to do that. The last thing I want to say to all the entrepreneurs out there, any hopeful entrepreneurs, is that you have to figure out what it is you're about. You have to figure out who you are, what you're really about, what you really want to do, and then you just got to go and put in the work. I mean, it's kind of cliche, But really, you got to figure out who it is you are. Once you figure out who you are, you be that person to the fullest, and it'll be easy to figure out what you need to do with your business. And no matter what your business is, no matter what angle you go at, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a lawyer or an author, always work on your game.
Excellent advice. And as always, the links and other things that we mentioned here in the podcast are going to be posted on nichepursuits.com. So if you want links to perhaps even this Kickstarter campaign that Dre just mentioned, and of course the different social profiles and his website, we'll have that over on nichepursuits.com and the show notes for this podcast. But I just want to thank everybody for listening in once again, and especially thank you, Dre, for coming on the podcast.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you.